You spoke a little bit about this. You glossed over it, but I'm sure it's one of the banes of your your working day is issues with real world data. So you mentioned a couple of things already. Maybe just, if you could speak a little bit to the challenges of working with real world data. We understand it's not the panacea that can solve all issues,
right?
but it offers a light into a specific path that you can potentially take. But I know, I assume working with it is, of course, there are challenges. So maybe you can speak a little bit about that, Shahed.
So yeah, I mean, there are two parts to it that we're talking about. One is the molecular side that is coming from the labs and things like that. Other is the clinical part. Let me talk about the clinical side first, because that's been the basic foundation of our understanding of real world data, coming from the claims, coming from the registries or EMR. Basically, claims or EMR, the first thing I would go into a very root cause of it. I mean, first of all, we have to understand that these data that are collected, that's not because, not with the purpose of research. There's some clinical management or billing. So there are different perspectives. So from the get go, it's not ideal in some areas. So we have to do a lot of kind of thinking as to how to approach the data. The second thing is like it may or may not have all the variables we need, and if they even have it, it may or may not have all the variables in the completeness of the data. So the completeness, the correctness of the data, and the consistencies of the data. A lot of the times we get electronic medical records from multiple different hospitals. The practices may be different. So last 15, 20 years, there has been a lot of effort from the community to standardize these data models and to bring us closer to what we call more pristine, more regulatory grade data. And there are ways and methods to do that, and also methods to kind of like combat some of the limitations of the data, but they remain. They remain, and especially when you go into a niche area, I keep bringing it to the thing to oncology, or even like, if you look at the population genetic data, UK Biobank, you go into like they're never powered enough for discovery, and you you may start with 10,000 patients, you may end up with 100 in your analysis set. So that's the level of attrition we are talking about. So that poses a challenge. On the molecular side, we get data from different. If we're looking at clinical, if we're getting it from the EMR, they are those molecular testing. It has been they have been done on different platforms, assays, and things like that, and they have their differences. How do we take into account? And if they're coming from one single lab, then can we just add to the other lab? And how do we harmonize the data? I mean, TCGA has some harmonization methods, but we have to harmonize it at a level. And there's also proprietary data. So some people, we cannot do it for ethical reasons or HIPAA reasons and things like that. So lots of challenges. And the last piece of it is like when you add the molecular, it becomes like very expensive. So the scale that we need for large scale discovery is becomes like really unattainable because of the cost. Sometimes it's cost prohibitive to increase the number of samples you need or number of patients with molecular data.